Right.
Along those lines, it occurs to me, and maybe I'll just ask for sort of a nodding head vote or an indication where people are coming from. I can appreciate the fact that we would like to have a fee structure and the policies in effect, all at the same time. But it occurs to me that people might want to be lining up to use the facility. They might want to book it now for use in the winter or in the spring. And it strikes me that the sooner the sooner we come up with a fee structure, the sooner we'll be able to tell people what it's going to cost, and the sooner we can get people to actually sign up. We can adjust this up or down as we go along. You can't change the deal you make with somebody, but you could say, well, we think now that maybe that was too low or too high, so I'm just interested in if there's any interest in the committee actually to approve this tonight, and if Mr. Carpenter feels there might be, and Mr. Zernio feels there might be feels that there might be a benefit to us doing that so that we can begin to accept people who are interested. Is there any interest in that? Would that benefit, do you think? Mr. Carpenter, would that be a...
We could hold off for 2 weeks, but,
Okay.
But I
I just don't want to miss anybody, any opportunities, bring the money in. My finance committee part.
We do have existing facilities use policies in place. It would be to revamp those, given the new facility. So we don't need to do both simultaneously. We can adopt fees and continue to use them.
But 2 weeks from now is soon enough, is what you're saying.
It's my understanding that there's going to be one person to coordinate this whole thing.
She's at the podium as we speak.
We also are working, we have, it's a horrible name, it's called School Dude, but it's a software, but it's a very user-friendly facilities use software. And it's something that Howard Elementary School has used and Howard High School both used religiously, and so outside groups you can log in and you can put in, and it shows once it gets along the process if there's a conflict, if that room is booked already. But then, so there are pieces already in place that Barbara has a piece of it in my office, the bookkeeper has a piece of it with invoicing. So there are, because this isn't, the building use, the decision to use and charge fees isn't new, it's just modifying the structure. And I think some of the, maybe some negotiations that we would have with some larger groups.
And as we've gone through and done research, I think there are some school districts that effectively use software like School Do to allow outside entities to come look to see, could I potentially use the auditorium at the high school, February 14th next year, and that doesn't mean that just because they see that it's open February 14th that they can use it. It goes through, the building principal would go and say, well, no, we have this thing going on, and it ultimately comes up the line. It could be the superintendent saying, that sort of entity or program or isn't appropriate on a school facility. Far be it for me to do that, but sometimes have to. And so there's different individuals along the way that put their fingerprint on the rental and usage too.
And always know that our own school functions take priority without, even if due to a snowstorm, something of a school function had to be switched and somebody else had the facility, obviously our school functions take priority.
Okay, Katie, thank you.
You're welcome.
And what I understand, what we're going to attempt to do between now and our next meeting, is that hopefully the subcommittee on policy will get a chance to look that over and come up with a draft, but at least we'll vote in 2 weeks the proposed usage fees.
Mr. Chairman, are you open to a couple of finance questions?
I'm always open, Hugh, so.
I'll let you stay open.
I do say, very good.
Well, I mean, you
Yes.
sort of cut me off before, so I don't, it's your meeting and I'll follow your rules. But I'm frustrated as a taxpayer. I'm frustrated with the lack of transparency. I asked Scott for the budget for 2015. He directed me to a site on the school's website. And I found it after, it wasn't easy to find it. It was, I think, presentation to the Board of Selectmen on March 13th, 2000 and, I forget the date. And you go through, there's 74 pages, and about the 35th page, there's the budget. Has not been updated for the changes that were made at the final meeting when we voted the budget. I also, it's in a PDF file, and I have a conversion program where I can take a PDF file and I can convert it to an Excel. I did that. I got spaghetti. I had to rebuild your whole budget in Excel to be able to analyze it. And I did. And I gave Scott a copy of this, so he shouldn't be surprised. The direct expenses, the district
Could
expenses.
I just interrupt you for 1 minute?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I have make a point of order. We have a long-standing policy that during the public comment period, people can address whatever's on their mind before the school committee. But we generally, in the past, have restricted audience participation on other agenda items to the agenda item itself. And at this point, we've been discussing facility use fees. So I do, we are volunteers here, we have lives, we do want to go home sometime tonight. So I would request that the comments at this point in the meeting be restricted to the subject that we're discussing, as opposed to bringing up other topics that should have been brought up in the open forum.
I appreciate both comments. Hugh, I hope you understand, and let me finish, that this statement, I don't know whether you were looking for an answer or you were making a statement, but I have to agree with my colleague, and I would invite you to do one of two things. Either at our next meeting, ask for some time with appropriate preparation that our superintendent and our business manager might be able to respond with drafts beforehand. If it reflects back on last year's confusion or lack of transparency, then we'll be able to address that, as opposed to, as Brian said, at a time at this meeting, all it can do is get you confused as well as me being hard-nosed. I will admit, I will recognize the fact that I've been, especially this evening, very flexible with questions and answers through or not even through the chair. And so I would like to have you re-invite you back at any other meeting and have an appropriate time in which we can respond to that. Because I don't think there's not going to be a half hour in which you will leave here saying, I got a clearer picture. So I thank you for your understanding of that. I may not agree, but I think that's what my chair decision will be at this time. Kate.
Could I just add, please, that the budgets were delivered to all both public libraries, and there's a copy of the budgets at Town Hall. So there are paper copies of those budgets that were distributed. So if you go to the library, you'd be able to physically have a
Paper
budget.
copy doesn't give you the opportunity to analyze and put the numbers together in a different way so that you can better understand, and which would be informative to you.
Thank you, Hugh, for your comments. Katie, back to our point. We'll shoot for that next 2 weeks with that rental fee. And seeing that we're now moving to the superintendent's report, so Scott?
I think we missed the number 2 policy.
We did. How could I do that easily? Policy subcommittee. Stephen?
Policy Subcommittee met on this past Monday to review and discuss the fingerprint-based criminal history record information, or now known as CHRI. Scott presented us with the recommended policy as by Mass Association of School Committees, which is being adopted by most school committees, with one caveat, which is in your packet. You can see this in the first area. The second paragraph is changed to reflect more Monomoy. And this allows us a little bit of flexibility and sets the date that current teachers have until to complete the test.
And that date is, it's dictated by law, and the state has also indicated that while it expects that all educators are fingerprinted by September 1, 2016, they also say that they're putting in a rolling time where school districts will be told, you know, you're gonna need to go and do it at an earlier date. I think the state's worried about having this big rush all at once, but it never came out with a list of who's supposed to, you know, have it done by what date. We, as a district, put forth a on-site fingerprinting kiosk in the middle school, and to the best of my knowledge from our HR person, we've had over 2/3 or 3/4 of our staff took advantage of the convenience of having it there. We're planning on closing up shop on the kiosk in the next few weeks, which you know, hopefully every Monomoy employee long before September 1st, 2016 will have this taken care of, and you know, those that don't will need to find the next closest. At the moment, the next closest isn't Bourne, but more than likely, sometime later this year, there'll be some place to go in Hyannis to have this done.
Chairman, I would move to approve the recommendation of the policy committee with regard to the presentation on the fingerprint-based criminal history record information.
We need to have 2 readings, so this would act as our first reading.
Okay.
And in our next meeting, it will act as our second reading. And has this been posted on the website yet, Barbara? Okay, so it'll be there for all to review.
I'll withdraw my motion. Or we can move to adjourn and I'll start another meeting.
Very good, Brian. Thanks, Steve, for clarifying that. Nancy?
Please. The second paragraph, it talks about staff and bus drivers.
All new.
Right, all new staff and bus drivers prior to employment, and then the second line, it says all Monomoy staff, substitute consider. Yeah,
Right.
sorry. That's what I read, I just didn't say it out loud. Does the Monomoy staff include bus drivers as well? So
Yes.
all current, should that be added in there? Or?
It's actually, the bus drivers, the bus drivers aren't our staff, and all of the bus drivers are done, have already been done. So it's,
Should that be in there anyways, though? So all current Monomoy staff, bus drivers, substitutes, coaches, or no?
maybe,
No, because they
I don't-
don't have the choice to wait until the 16th.
yeah, the bus drivers aren't waiting till the 16th, they're done.
Okay.
And I think the big debate in this paragraph is, should all volunteers be fingerprinted, or is there a threshold at which you fingerprint them? This is consistent, when I've been meeting with area superintendents, I think that everyone has really looked at it as a unrealistic or unmanageable thing if we were to fingerprint every volunteer. So it distinguishes those volunteers who would potentially have unmonitored contact with students, or those volunteers who are chaperoning overnight trips, or those that we would say, okay, you need to be fingerprinted, but it's not a global fingerprint. The class mom who's gonna come in every other week in elementary school, even though the teacher's always in that room. So and keep in mind that the fingerprinting has a charge. It's $35 for a volunteer to be fingerprinted.
You have to
fingerprint the parent pickup people.
That might limit the parent pickup.
Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, folks. So first reading will be this evening, and we'll follow up in our next meeting. Now, Scott, it's your turn to give us a summary report.
All right, so most of my stuff has already been taken care of. Let's see, Robin Millen, check. MCAS, check.
Well, semi-check.
So,
Thank you, Terry.
just some little reports out for people to know and sort of foreshadow things to come. We met with the administrative team and the Chatham-Harwich Police this past Tuesday to talk with them about implementing ALICE training for our staff and ultimately for our students. ALICE is sort of the new protocols, post-Columbine schools with the guidance and of law enforcement, public safety, has started to adopt lockdown procedures, which had a particular approach, which was lock your doors, turn off your lights, gather everybody into a corner. And since then, public safety has looked at what has happened to individuals who have followed that approach and felt that approach is too restrictive. There's a video that one can watch online, produced in part by the Homeland Security, called Run, Hide, Fight, and giving options to people under challenging, very challenging times. We will be having the police come to the middle school and high school at a staff meeting in October and begin conversations with teachers about this different approach to handling school safety under very challenging times. And then in November, at both elementary schools, we'll have those same conversations. I've invited the police to come here to the second school committee in October to do a little overview for the committee so that they, so that you understand what we're going to be doing with our teachers and what sort of drills we would ultimately be doing with students. And we will also have a public forum, for parents, so that parents understand, what's going on and what we're doing in terms of protecting safety within the schools later in October as well. So after the staff get trained, we'll follow that up with drills for the students. Bill had mentioned that the high school is now 1-to-1, so we can check that one off. Little things to also be aware of. We started this week a late bus for our middle school and high school students, so that it gives our students options to connect with teachers after school, get some extra help, get involved in a club. So roughly an hour after the end of the school day, a bus will come at the middle school, and it will do a run to the Chatham Rec Center, come over here to the high school, and it becomes a big loop through the heart of both towns, and would have several stops at youbig places like Stop and Shop or Shaw's down on is it Sisson? So you'll have a lot of or several stops at big areas where students could get out of the elements ideally, and most of those stops are within a mile or so of a student's house. It's not a late bus that's going. This is not a door-to-door limo. This is trying to get students and give them an opportunity to go and stay after school and get back to their homes. But again, I appreciate the time that Cape Destinations put into working with us to come up with a loop. So So it will loop through the community twice and get the high school students and middle school students home after they've stayed. I met with the communications subcommittee as well, and we talked primarily about the district's website, looking at the website to hopefully make it a little more user-friendly so you can find the budget. So I feel his pain on that one, and I've reached out to some web developers in town to look primarily at one spot for this school year, and that's the school websites themselves. I would say we have a reasonable, although not great, district website, but I wouldn't consider, once you go and click on Chatham Elementary School or Harwich Elementary School or the high school or middle school, I wouldn't say that when we get there, it really reflects a good school website. And we want the websites to be informative for our parents or students. It becomes a PR tool for our district as well. And while parents might go to the Monomoy website, if they're when it comes down to making decisions on is this where we want our children, ultimately they're going to the school website, and that's where again at the high school and middle school they're new. That part of the website's in transition, but we want to make sure that we kind of have work with a firm, probably for hopefully some short money, to sort of have a standardized, well laid out school website that's kind of consistent for each of the schools. That being said, the website as a whole could use an overhaul, which is a much bigger